everyone, welcome to a new video. In the last lecture we looked at surrealism in music. I'd say it was quite debatable whether you can squeeze music into the surrealist genre, but we had a look anyway, quite briefly. We're now going to look at surrealism in film and theatre. Surrealism emerged as an avant-garde movement in the early 20th century. It sought to explore the unconscious mind, dreams, and irrationality through art. This is where it gets quite exciting, I think, and more actually something to talk about as a specific movement. In the realms of theatre and film, surrealism manifested as a way to break away from realistic and logical narratives, creating works that were dreamlike, fantastical, and often unsettling. This approach aimed to provoke deeper psychological responses and challenge conventional perceptions of reality. Surrealism began in the 1920s, initially within the visual arts and literature. Yes, in the last video I did explore music slightly, because I think it's important to consider all art forms and what music was doing at the same time, although they would not describe themselves as surrealist. I mean, you might. Anyway, André Breton's publication of the Surrealist Manifesto in 1924 provided a theoretical framework for the movement, surrealism, which soon spread to other artistic forms, including theatre and film. Influenced by the works of Sigmund Freud and his theories of the unconscious, surrealist artists aimed to create works that revealed the hidden depths of the human psyche. So let's start by looking at surrealism in theatre. Surrealist theatre often employed dreamlike and fantastical scenarios, breaking away from logical plot structures to create an atmosphere of the surreal and the uncanny. The uncanny is the key word here. I recommended this in the last video. Read Freud's Heimlich und Unheimlich, or it could be just called the Unheimlich, I can't quite remember. In it he explores how the Heimlich and the Unheimlich blend into one another so that they're not quite opposite, they're one and the same. It's almost like a dialectical relationship. It's like the uncanny and the canny. And I explained this in the last video, but you don't have to watch that video. You're better off reading what he does, because he etymologically unpacks uncanny and its meaning and how canny and uncanny bleed into one another so that they're not opposites, but they kind of are. Take an example, the home. Homely. It's safe, familiar, but in another perspective, it's secluded, hidden off from the world, unfamiliar. And etymologically, throughout time, history and culture, the word evolved. And uncanny is a really interesting concept. It's about finding unfamiliarity in the familiar. Rich symbolism and metaphor were used to convey deeper psychological truths and explore themes related to the unconscious mind. Already I'm thinking of Lynch's films. They have to be surrealist, come on. I mean, they'd be modern though, they'd be like a take on surrealism. Surrealism arose before that time. Ooh. What happens if I do this with the microphone? Is this better? Surrealism arose before, well, it was the 1920s, wasn't it? But it's influenced art since then. We have strange and absurd characters in surrealist theatre and film. Characters in surrealist theatre were frequently bizarre, embodying abstract concepts or unconscious fears and desires. Yes, Freud was all about the unconscious and repressed traumas, the primal trauma, and this was a prominent concept considered by society at the time, and naturally it makes sense for it to come out in its art. Surrealist plays integrated striking visual and auditory elements such as unusual lighting, distorted sounds and abstract sets to enhance the sense of the surreal. And again, this parallels music at the time, which was experimental. And so you can see how people are influencing each other. And although you wouldn't describe music as having a surreal genre, you might. History is written by humans after all. There are other reasons for the development of music to be seen as surreal, but it depends on the context. Notable figures, oh, this is where it gets exciting. Antonin Artaud, Antonin Artaud. Although not strictly surrealist, Artaud's theatre of cruelty shared many surrealist principles. His works aimed to shock and affect the audience at a primal unconscious level. He used intense sensory experiences and non-traditional narrative forms. So the traits are there. Nothing arises in a vacuum, everything feeds into everything else. There's lots of influences. We also have Federico García Lorca. Plays like The Public and When 5 Years Pass exemplify surrealist theatre with their dreamlike imagery, symbolic content and exploration of the subconscious. Key concepts to remember here if you want just a nutshell overview. Dreamlike imagery, symbols, symbolic content, the subconscious. People are interested in psychoanalysis. Let's have a look at surrealism in film. Some key characteristics and techniques are as follows. 1. We have dream logic. Surrealist films often follow the logic of dreams rather than reality, creating a disorienting and otherworldly experience for the viewer. Again, Lynch does this. Rich, symbolic imagery is used to evoke the unconscious mind and explore themes of desire, fear, and the irrational. During psychoanalysis, things like fears and desires are connected, and the primal traumas are our subconscious fears and cause us to rethink the world in different ways and blah blah blah. Maybe I should do a video on psychoanalysis as well. Psychoanalysis is fascinating, and exploring notions of familiarity and unfamiliarity in atonal music specifically. It gets interesting the more you think about it. We have non-linear editing in surrealist films. Surrealist filmmakers frequently use non-linear editing techniques such as jump cuts, disjointed sequences. This was to disrupt the conventional storytelling and reflect the fragmented nature of dreams. This happens a lot now, so I think this is pretty standard for us to see jump cuts and things like that. But if you think about it back at the time, theatre was more popular, and you can't really do that in theatre. You can't have a jump cut in theatre. Not like you can in film, anyway. Surrealist films delved into the depths of the human psyche, often revealing disturbing or taboo subjects. Again, taboos. This connects to psychoanalysis. To pose a limit on something presupposes the idea that there is a beyond that limit, and it immediately makes you think of beyond the limit. Adorno talks about this as well when he talks about dialectics, but I think maybe he got it from Hegel. I'm digressing. These are things to look up. You should look this up. Tell me. We have Louis Buñuel, one of the most prominent surrealist filmmakers. Buñuel's collaboration with Salvador Dali produced the iconic films Un Chien Andalou and L'Âge d'Or. These films are characterised by their shocking imagery, non-linear narratives, and exploration of the unconscious. We also have Cocteau's films, such as The Blood of a Poet in 1930 and Orpheus in 1950, blend surreal imagery with mythological themes, so again we've got symbolism, creating dreamlike narratives that explore the boundary between reality and imagination. We've got Maya Deren, an avant-garde filmmaker. Deren's Meshes of the Afternoon in 1943 is a seminal work in surrealist cinema. The film uses repetitive, dreamlike sequences and symbolic imagery to delve into the themes of identity and the subconscious. We've got these three key components: dream-like things, symbolism, and querying the psyche, questioning reality, identity, the subconscious, the difference between reality and imagination. And then the repetitiveness could be structurally going against what's expected, juxtaposing things, constantly unsettling the viewer so that they don't get sucked in and they query things that they're seeing. Okay, legacy and impact. Now we get on to what I've been talking about throughout this video. Surrealism's influence on theatre and film has been profound and enduring. In theatre, surrealist techniques paved the way for later experimental and avant-garde movements, such as absurdist theatre. We need to look at absurdist theatre. That's interesting. This includes the works of playwrights like Samuel Beckett and Eugène Ionesco, who explored the irrational and the illogical in their plays. Beckett is really good for that. And I think you can say a lot about the world more realistically than mere realism, whatever that is. In film, surrealism has continued to inspire directors and filmmakers who seek to break free from conventional storytelling and explore the depths of the human psyche. Directors such as David Lynch, with films like Eraserhead in 1977 and Mulholland Drive in 2001, are a good example of this. Mulholland Drive, I have watched that. It is all dreamlike. It does blur the boundaries between dreams and reality. It has symbolism in it, gets you to go deeply into the subconscious, and it's actually all about the subconscious. Does it juxtapose things? I think so. And it's quasi-absurd at times. Okay, I get it now. See, understanding surrealism can help you understand the film more. And we also have Terry Gilliam with works like Brazil in 1985. These have drawn on surrealist techniques to create visually stunning and psychologically complex films. Surrealism revealed itself in the world of acting, theatre and film through its embrace of dream logic, symbolic imagery and non-linear narratives. That's another one, non-linear narratives. So you have dreams, symbolism, non-linear narratives, juxtapositions, unconventional structures, and contemplating the psyche. By challenging conventional forms and delving into the unconscious mind, surrealist artists created works that continue to intrigue, provoke, and inspire audiences to this day, you could say. Anyway, that's a brief overview of surrealism in film and theatre. And we'll just keep going, and we'll start to understand more about the avant-garde experimental world, which will ultimately make us better creatives, I think. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.